Welcome to the CEO Next Door. Our focus on this podcast is on founder stories. I'm your host, Mike Mayer, and with me today is my co-host, Donovan Morrison, and our special guest, Karen Fursel. Hello, Karen. How are
Hey
you?
guys, thanks for having me.
Well, let's start by learning a little bit about you. Why don't you tell us about yourself and what you're up to currently?
Sure. My name is Karen Fursel. I own my own media company called Fursel Media. I am a lifestyle expert here in Chicago, which is an on-camera position that I've built over the years. The show that I contribute to is called Daytime Chicago, which is on WGN. And I'm also a US correspondent for two of the top morning shows in Canada, one called Breakfast Television and the other one called Cityline. My background really is what sets me apart. I was a television producer. I studied broadcast journalism at University of Illinois and then moved to New York without a job and just sort of pounded the pavement. This is before the internet and before cell phones, so I'm sort of dating myself. I was a producer. My first job was an Inside Edition for King World, which was a great job, and I'm still very close with some of my colleagues there. It really allowed me to sort of understand the business. It's very much like boot camp there. I went on to produce at MSNBC. I did long form documentaries for them. I produced for Dateline. And then moved to CNN. I helped start Anderson Cooper show, which is still on the air, called Anderson Cooper 360. And then my phone rang. And Harpo, which is the Oprah Winfrey show, had somehow gotten my resume. To this day, I still don't know how they did it. But I was flown in for an interview and then got a job offer to come back to my hometown of Chicago to produce at Oprah. I was there for a few years and I produced some really, some of their big shows. I was part of the car show, which is really what I get asked about the most in some of my public speaking, which I'm happy to talk about that because there's some really good tidbits behind the scenes. We did Oprah's 50th birthday. I was a producer on her first Academy Awards show. So we were at the Oscars. It was a great run. I walked away from the show, which is hard to do, right? It's a lot of money and it's a lot of prestige. Something that I probably dreamed about as a little girl watching Oprah Winfrey in Chicago. And I walked away just to sort of get my life back. It just, it took over every bit of my, every waking hour. And I really decided that, it was sort of time that I take control back. And I left and I got married and had kids. And then that's when I started my media company. The company in itself sort of started as a PR company just because people were asking me for help, when it came to relationships with local media. And then eventually I really saw an opening for really good storytelling in this lifestyle category. I felt like Chicago was a city that was in desperate need of someone to really do some very polished work on camera. I felt like I was ready for it. And I had grown up, watching New York TV and I really understood how to produce it and obviously execute it on air. So I really just started booking myself, and calling up and emailing my contacts and sort of presenting myself in a way that they were, these producers were not used to, because they're used to booking magazine editors or authors or, PR people. And those people are good, but those people are always behind the scenes. They're really never polished enough for camera. And so that's sort of what set me apart. And that has really, that really started right after my son was born. So he's 12. So that part of the company has been about 12 years strong. And I keep on going.
What kind of topics are you presenting on television?
Yeah, so lifestyle sort of runs the gamut, right? My sort of sweet spot for Chicago and Toronto is always trends and what's trending and things that I feel like I know about, but more people do not. So I always get some access to really good products, whether that's in this, I would say in the sector of beauty or style, parenting. Technology was is a big category for me. I do a lot of work for NBC as well within their technology segments. And so I love it because it gives me a little bit of carte blanche to be able to, come up with themes on my own, but everything is very calendar related, and it really falls into those categories. It's, again, it's a beauty, it's style, it's food and drinks, it's tech, it's parenting, it's home, it's gifting. So it really allows me to sort of, explore all those categories. And I really love to be the first to present, a brand or a product that hasn't been presented before.
Mm-hmm.
And also I really love storytelling in a very applicable, relatable way. My thing for camera is like, I want to be on camera or on TV the same person I am in real life. And it's true, because out of all my friends and all of our groups, I'm always the go-to for women who are asking me, what makeup is that? What jeans are you wearing? What is that? What is that? And so I've become that go-to person, like that, everyone's sort of very resourceful best friend. And
Mm-hmm.
I love it because it allows me to really dig deep and be very well read and sort of be first to the scene to be able to talk about things.
It's so fun.
It is fun. It is fun. Yes, it is.
I want to take a step back, and I want to go through you've worked at such great places, so well known and recognized. I mean, networks and shows that we all watch every day or have watched.
Yeah.
Can you tell us any interesting anecdotes or stories from?
Sure. Yeah. So my first internship, when I was at U of I declared broadcast journalism right away.
Mm-hmm.
My parents dropped me off that, fateful August day. And they're like, you can do whatever you want, but you have to graduate in 4 years. And I remember my college counselor, who I'm still friends with today on LinkedIn, and
Wow.
it's hysterical. Her name is Sue Beamerick from Stevenson High School in Lincolnshire, Illinois. I remember meeting with her as a senior, and I was like, I think I want to be the next Katie Couric. And she was just like, no, that is not going to happen. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to prove you wrong. And so every time I landed at an internship or a job, I would write her on stationery from that job or that show and send it to her. So internships obviously for TV are key. My first internship, I got very lucky. I was an intern for Peter Jennings when he was hosting World News Tonight.
Wow.
Long story short, in college, I met a girl who was 1 year older than me. She was from New York and New Jersey area, and she knew I was a broadcast. I was, majoring in broadcast, and she was like, "Oh, you need to meet my dad." And I was like, oh, who's your dad? And she was like, oh, he works for ABC News. And I thought like he was a writer or something. I didn't know who he was. And it turns out it was Rick Kaplan. Rick Kaplan was the executive producer of World News Tonight and has been my mentor since 1995. He now lives literally down the street from me in Northbrook.
Wow.
And we have lunch almost every week.
Wow.
He is a mammoth in the industry. Rick was the president of CNN, the president of MSNBC. He is he was a professor at Harvard. This man he is a monster in the industry. He is like 6'4", and in his heyday was probably 260, 280. And he is just, a booming voice, and anyone, in TV will know who Rick Kaplan is. So he, had said to me when I met him at the sorority house, like, you should come work for me. And I was like, okay. I called my parents from the house phone. Again, we didn't have any cell phones. Right. And I was like, oh, I'm moving to New York. And they were like, you're what? I'm from, Buffalo Grove, and not in a million years did I think that I was going to be moving to New York that quickly, but I did. And that experience was incredible. Peter Jennings was the most amazing journalist that I had met at that time. And watching the show come together. So the show in New York airs at 6:30, which is 5:30 Central. so all afternoon, they're really hustling and trying to get, all the copy ready for on air. So I really got to watch how that happened. I parlayed that to an internship my next summer at The Late Show with David Letterman,
Amazing.
which was incredible. Very different, right? So I was at World News, which is all news. And then Letterman was all celebrities and celebrity guests. And it was a lot of fetching coffee and answering phones. But I got to see how that show is put together. I mean, I was the intern in the executive producer's office. So every celebrity walked in there and, wanted to talk to Rob Burnett was the EP at the time. And, I would answer phones and someone by the name of William Murray would call and keep giving me a hard time. And like, eventually he showed up and it was Bill Murray. And I was like, why didn't you tell me it was Bill? Like, cause he would always say it's William Murray, and we had a lot of crazy people calling. So you had to like screen calls. Right. So after that, I went back to school, graduated in 4 years, just like my parents told me, moved to New York. Inside Edition was, again, very much like boot camp. I was there during, again, I'm dating myself, the Clinton and Lewinsky scandal. So Inside is very salacious. And so I spent a lot of time like in cars outside of Monica Lewinsky's apartment, like trying to get shots of her. I interviewed JFK Jr. That was really, incredible because he had launched George magazine when I was there. So we did the red carpet. I was there during Columbine, which, for all of us, that was really the first, not really the first in a long line of horrific events, but that was a big one.
Right.
And that changed me a lot. I was a very sheltered girl. I grew up in a very nice neighborhood, and New York is, and with news, of course, you really see the real world and what is, what's possible and what also is horrible out there. So that, those were some of my big stories. MSNBC, my first day at MSNBC, John F. Kennedy Jr. was killed in the plane crash. And so my executive producer, who again, I'm still, connected to versus, or on Facebook, he looked at me and he was like, have you ever produced television? And at Inside, I mean, I was like an associate producer and I helped, and I looked at him, and this is a key for anybody who wants to go into TV. I looked at him and I said, yes, I like kind of had to wing it. Right. And ever since then, he called on me for that show and how that show evolved. We did long form documentaries, which were really, really great. And then September 11th happened and I was at NBC News. So that obviously really shook me. I was not far from that at all. And that's, that's a part of my career that, I am so grateful that I was there to be a part of that, to like we produced documentaries. We never slept. I mean, for days and days and days.
Wow.
We were buying footage off the street from people that were recording it on, either their cameras or these flip phones. I mean, again, no one had smartphones. And that was really hard. I saw a lot of footage that has never been shown publicly. And I lived very close to the hospital where the walls were just lined with flyers looking for people. And of course, everybody that was waiting outside for triage, they kept on waiting. There was nobody. That was, again, that was a really weird part because I wanted to believe that like my innocence wasn't gone, but it was. And, and I've spoken about this story countless times. I've written about it. I'm hired a lot to do a lot of public speaking, but the night before 9/11, so September 10th, there was a massive rainstorm in New York. I mean, torrential downpour. And I was walking home from MSNBC and I remember like getting caught in the rain, but like for some reason, like I didn't duck into, a building. I didn't get an umbrella. Like I just walked because it was September and it was like this very warm night and it was a warm rain. And I remember thinking like, I feel so happy and like you feel alive. You're just like walking in this rain and I was drenched. And then the next day the skies were, crystal blue and September 11th happened. So I'll always sort of go back to that and remember the changes and how quickly they came on.
The before time. Yes. Yeah. I can relate.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Karen, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners in their day-to-day when experiencing or taking in media see the role and credits of producers or executive producers, but what does that look like as a producer in television? What does your day-to-day kind of entail?
Yeah. Well, it means you do everything, I have always joked that like every single person in this world needs a best friend who's a TV producer because somehow we make everything happen. Like we walk on water, we make magic happen. And that is true. I mean, so from a more technical side of producing is that you are assigned a topic or a story and most likely you're going to have a guest or you need to write a script and you need to, like, for example, for MSNBC, I did an hour-long documentary. I mean, that takes months and months and months of work when it comes to interviewing people, editing pieces, writing script, working with the anchors and things like that. That's more like long-term, documentary type of stuff, which you're not under the gun per se. Breaking news, you're under the gun and producers have to be very smart, very quick. And they are generating questions for the anchor or generating questions for a guest. And then they're often writing a lot of that copy. For Oprah, it was obviously a lot more fun, but when you're doing a show like that, where there are so many moving pieces and guests and giveaways and, taped pieces and everything, you are literally, whatever that executive producer or those senior producers need, like you have to be like, I can do it. I will do it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes most of the time it's not sexy, right? I mean, everyone thinks like, oh, TV, it's like so sexy. No, it's not. It's not. We are sleep deprived. We often eat at our desks. We sleep at our desks. We are running around. There's a good story that when I was at Oprah, she did a weight loss show, which she obviously did a lot. And I remember one of the executive producers, and this was like 10 o'clock at night, and our show was live the next day. Sometimes they were taped, sometimes they were live. And she looked at us and she was like, you know what, to the team, she was like, you know what, I need like, and you never, like, you're always like, oh no, like what do they need now? Right. And she was like, you know what, I think we need, like, there was a very famous moment where Oprah wheels out like the pounds of weight that she's lost over the years. It's a show back from the 90s, and she wheeled it out on a wheelbarrow. And I lost a lot of weight again before her 50th birthday, which is where, when I was there. So the producer's like, I think we need to do that again. We need to show, what 30 pounds or whatever it was of weight or fat looks like. And I was like, oh no, I mean, 10 o'clock at night and our show is on tomorrow at 9. And for some reason they gave it to my team, and we had to I looked at my computer. I'm like, you have to think, where are you going to get this? And the only thing I could think of was, quintessential Chicago was the steakhouses. And I called around and I wanted to know which steakhouse had their own butcher in-house, because they often have garbage at the end of the night. And sure enough, Smith and Walensky, you call and you say you're from the Oprah Winfrey Show, they will take your call. I was probably praying like, please don't take my call. Please don't take my call. But they were like, oh yeah, we didn't take, I was like, and every time I call the steakhouse, I'm like, did you take out the garbage yet? And they're, the manager was like, oh no, we haven't taken out the garbage yet. I'm like, don't touch that garbage. I'm coming over. And we went to go pick up like 15 pounds of like discarded, God only knows what. And I had an Audi at the time, and I was thinking like, how, like, is this really my job?
Wow.
And you have that. And then the next day, and then one day you're interviewing Tina Turner and John Travolta and, Aretha Franklin. I mean, it's such a big scope of work. That's why I say, it's always really important to have a friend that's a producer, because somehow we figure it out.
Out of all the celebrities you've met, who do you love? Who is just an amazing person?
I really did love Tina Turner. She performed for us for Oprah's big 50th birthday show. I loved Stevie Wonder. His team was very, very sweet. I was the producer on the Seinfeld, like Last Hurrah. It was like the full cast of Seinfeld. And that was a show that, hello, I mean, all of us grew up on, and like, that was amazing. I did the show where we had the cast of Shrek on. So it was Cameron Diaz and Mike Myers and all those. And then I really did love, just talking and dealing with real people. The car giveaway show, because all of those people who got cars were in such need of a car. That really touched me, because again, I came from a place where I don't know what it's like to walk and take a bus and take a train to get to work, or that your car is 20 years old and you live in Tennessee and your air conditioning doesn't work. Like, I don't know what that is. So I really learned a lot about humanity with, with stories that we did in terms of, real people. And, I mean, obviously the Academy Awards was a great show. Our show had Julia Roberts, it had Jamie Foxx. And there's a funny story about that too, because it was the first time Oprah had done a show right the morning after the Oscars. And again, I'm dating myself, but we were like, what's the movie with all the hobbits? I can't remember now. Anyways, but my team, we were like, they're like, we need hobbits from whatever I can't remember.
Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, Lord of the Rings. And like the executive producer, like, we need all the hobbits. We need like, Peter Jackson, whatever, like tomorrow morning at 8. I'm like, there's no way that they're like leaving Oscar parties. They're going to go home and like get in hair and makeup and come. And, it turns out everyone we were asking, even if it was for Oprah, everyone was like, no, kept on saying no. And so, off the record, Oprah had to make some personal phone calls to Julia and to Jamie Foxx, because we literally were scrambling for guests in that first show, because, at that point, celebrities don't want to come the next morning to be on a show if they've just been at the Oscars. So stressful. I remember like, I didn't sleep at all that night. We came home from the hotel room. I had called my boyfriend at the time, my husband. And I couldn't feel my feet. Like, I'm like, I legit think I need to like go to the hospital or something. Cause you're running around in heels for 20 hours a day. And
oh my God,
crying, like I said, it's not sexy all the time. But it's very fulfilling, like I said, the car show is very fulfilling. And to be able to talk about it all these years later,
so well known, especially that episode.
Sounds, the car show is like pop culture. My birthday's tomorrow, and my best friend, thank you, we were with each other yesterday, and I get sent everything that has Oprah's meme on it, like, you get a car, you get a haircut, you get you get a house, whatever it is, like. And my birthday card this year was the same Oprah, like, body. It was like a cartoon. It was like, you get a birthday and you get a birthday, it's like, and so to be part of pop culture history about that, and I can go into a couple fun stories about that, is really, it's very surreal, because it follows you. Crazy. And that meme will never go away. And everybody sends it to me. It's been in movies, it's been on TV shows, it's been everywhere.
Yeah.
And it wasn't scripted. That's what's so cool about it.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So that show was our summer like kickoff. It was like our opening show for that summer.
Mhm.
And we worked really hard. Oprah had met with GM, obviously all summer. I think she had met with them actually prior to even summer, probably that spring. And they were like, oh, we should, give away a car. And she was like, I think the bigger picture was like, let's give away 350 cars, which is of course unheard of. And so that, that was a massive, massive secret. We were not able to tell anybody, not spouses, parents, anyone, because there was a very small team that worked on that show. We went through so much mail of people, friends or themselves writing in why they needed a car. And, I think it's really important to say that people over the years wrote into Oprah about everything. I need a house. I need you to pay my credit card. I'm down on my luck. So we cataloged all those letters, and nothing ever went unread. Some people are like, oh, it's never going to be read. No, it was read. That was part of our job.
Wow.
So we compiled all these people. We did all the background checks, and we flew them to Chicago under the a pretense that this was something else. Obviously, there was a lot of teachers in the audience. I think we might have told some that we were doing like a teacher appreciation and things like that, just to lure them to Chicago. And then up until the night before, this was a live show. We did not know how we were going to give away the cars. Like literally, this was 11 o'clock at night. And I remember my senior producer, his name was Terry, and he was just like, yeah, if anyone has an idea, like we're stuck. It has to be a big TV moment. It's, there was no social media, but like, so the word viral was not out there, but like in the sense that was probably a moment where if we had the word viral, we would have used it, right? It would have been over every social media platform. But so I was allowed to go home for like an hour to go shower. And I remember like, I was either in the shower or driving. And I was like, we should put a key in a little box under every chair in the audience after we've given out. I think we gave out like 10 or 11 cars. And then Oprah would say, I have one car left and I want everyone to open the box at the same time. And whoever has the key is going to win that last car. And I thought was like, oh, I think this could work because, you're going to get the viral moment of like 350 people all opening up these little boxes. And we had cameras everywhere. And we were going to get that moment where people are like, you have a key, I have a key, and then it was like, massive chaos. So I went back, I told my producer, and he was like, oh, I like that. I'm going to go tell Oprah. And like, sure enough, an hour later he comes back, he goes, Karen, like they're going to do your idea. And I was like, oh, wow. And so we have a props department and they, had, faux keys, and we had little jewelry boxes that were stuffed with cotton, and they put extra cotton. So we didn't want people like to shake it. And if you watch the clip back, it's, it's on YouTube. Sure. You'll see her say like, don't shake it. Don't open it until I say. We knew we had multiple paramedics on staff, because not on staff, but like there that day. Yeah, because a favorite thing show, SNL makes fun of it, but like people's heads, they explode. Okay. Like we were so worried that people were going to like legit pass out. Right. And so we had the ambulances there, and I'm in the control room, like, being like, okay, if this doesn't work, I'm totally going to get fired. But if it does work, like, it's going to be awesome.
Epic.
And yes. And so the line of you get a car and you get a car. So we did exactly what I wanted to, was we put the boxes underneath the chairs. Oprah says, everybody has a box. I have one car left. Don't touch your box. Don't open it. JR was our sound guy. She said, JR, can I have a drum roll? He does the drum roll. And then all these people open the boxes. And, obviously we had cameras everywhere. So we got that shot where everyone is going insane, right? I mean, these are people that wanted cars, wrote in about cars, needed a car. And the reason why You Get a Car came out, it was unscripted. Oprah, it was so loud in the studio. And I'm sweating, you know, in the control room, right? And it was so loud in the studio. She didn't think everyone understood, like, that everyone got a car. And so that's where, you know, you get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car, and everybody gets a car, because she couldn't hear. She had an earpiece in, no one could hear. And the rest is sort of like pop culture history.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow. You created it. That's amazing. And I love that people that were at that show, I just assume they were just randoms that had signed up to attend.
Yeah.
That's great that they actually legit needed it. And so it meant so much more to them. That's so nice.
It was so nice. There was a little, I mean, I'm sure everyone knows there was a little bit of controversy, because as much as Harpo and GM could, you know, sort of be responsible for the actual car, the taxes, because of the laws, people had to pay the taxes on the car. So, you know, in my very romantic way of thinking, like, I really hope that enough people, you know, kept the car. Some people obviously sold it, or because they couldn't afford the taxes, but overall, like, it's
amazing gift.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've talked about so many different celebrities you've met, and I bet you get this question all the time, but I would love to hear, and I think everyone's really intrigued by the special requests you get from celebrities, like before they show up. I've heard so many weird stories.
Yeah.
Have you had any? Are you getting those requests, and did you have any weird ones?
Well, I was not in charge of catering, but I will tell you this. And I will tell, you know, I mean, I think it's out there. I don't know. Stevie Wonder, who I absolutely loved. I loved his team. They were great. Like, he had a lot of, you know, people with him.
Sure.
He requested navy blue towels for his green room. And we were like, huh, interesting. Okay, like, no problem. But I remember that. And that was interesting.
Random.
They, you know, yeah, random. I know celebrities wanted, you know, everything that was white in there, you know, or certain colors of the M&Ms. Like, I was definitely not on the catering side, but our green rooms were very nice, and they were very stocked. I'll just say that, with good food. Yeah.
So, Karen, for folks who are interested in breaking into TV, getting into producing, it sounds like those initial internships really served you well. But do you have any other tips or learnings from these vast experiences that you'd be able to impart upon our listeners who may be interested in pursuing this?
Yeah, I mean, I think for TV, it is it's the age-old theme, right? It's not what you know, it's who you know. And that is a massive part of the entertainment industry, for sure. One of the things that Rick had said to me, because his daughter was at U of I with me, and he was actually a graduate of U of I, so he came in and he did a guest lecture a couple times with our broadcast class, and I remember him saying, like, you know, Care, don't ever take no for an answer. And I've always remembered that. And this business is really hard. And there's a lot of no's, right? There's a lot of doors that get sort of closed for you. There's a lot of emails that don't get answered. There's a lot of people that just say, you know, we don't need this, or you're not a right fit, or whatever. But my advice, obviously, is to really, you know, don't be afraid to depend on who you know, right? And you have to sort of take very indirect ways sometimes to this particular path for television or entertainment, and it's so up and down. There's never a straight line. It's very, very rocky. I would say you have to, declassify yourself as beyond just a title. Like, I'm not, I say lifestyle expert, but I really talk about, like, I'm a storyteller, and I have to put myself in the shoes of a producer. Like, how can I help them? Producers, especially right now in local TV, are understaffed and they're overworked. So I like to help them, right? I like to provide them content so that they can trust me when I get there with my stuff or I send them my script. They don't have to worry about me, right? I know how to produce TV. I know what good TV looks like. I know how to message for brands or products. So I want to problem solve for them. So I would always say to people that are studying, broadcast, or they want to break into the, radio or TV or film, really any aspect of the industry, is like, you've got to be a problem solver.
Mhm.
Find out who the decision makers are and solve problems for them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's, I know we've talked a lot about your very glamorous background and all these cool roles, but I want to kind of redirect, because, the topic for our podcast is usually focused on founder stories
Yeah.
and stories about founding businesses. So I know you've had a couple of businesses. Let's talk more about your restaurant business
Mhm.
that we haven't discussed yet, and
Yeah.
tell us about what you started, why you started it, and what you learned from that business.
Yeah. So I took a pivot from TV, but in a way, like, it kind of was still what I was used to, because I felt like every day that the restaurant was open was like a show, right? And like, I had to be front and center and I had to be on, just for obviously customer service, but also like, I'm the face of this brand. So I started a brand in my hometown called Jar Bar. It was out of a necessity that I really thought was, we were kind of in this food desert at the time. This was 2015 or 2017. Where we have an abundance of hamburgers and hot dogs and pizza, but that's not, the way I eat. It's not like how I like to feed our family. We're very healthy, very, nutrient dense type of eaters. And so I moved out here and I was like, wherever is everything. I mean, I love Whole Foods and it's a great salad bar, but like, I kind of felt like all those concepts were in the city, or they were in Evanston and they were not here. So I started my own concept, and we secured a brick and mortar space in our downtown. And it was great. I mean, we did salads and we did like really artisanal salads, artisanal sandwiches, poke bowls, acai, avocado toast. We were very, very known for our cake jars, which, it was cake, but at the same time, it really was about eating happy, right? And so I started it, and it, nothing made me happier than seeing a very full dining room, because I felt like, okay, people get it, and it wasn't just my friends, right? It was like real people that were coming over and over again that said, I have to have this, this overnight oats, and I want 6 of them because I love them and I want them every morning. And for me, I was like, that really was my goal, right? And then, as it does in restaurants, it's very up and down, and it really depends on everything from food costs to labor costs. Labor costs, I learned so much about.
Mhm.
And I'm not a numbers person. I'm the creative side of businesses. And so my husband, definitely helped us. And we brought in some real experts as well that sort of shepherd us through all the ins and the outs of the restaurant business. And it's very cutthroat, just like TV. And there isn't a lot of margin for error, just like
Right.
TV. So it had a lot of similar threads. Unfortunately, our town did some construction on the main thoroughfare and the roads in which we were located. And I believe it was 5 or 6 businesses went out of business during that construction or right after it. So I have really never failed like that in my life. And I mean, to this day, and there is another restaurant in that space. I have never walked back in that building. It's just too tough for me to actually be there. I remember walking out that last day, and cleaning up, and then I've never walked back in, and we closed in 2019. So that's 3 years ago.
Mhm.
And the space is literally right down the street from me. So,
Right.
it harbors a lot of bad feelings for me, because we put so much effort into that concept. And as a whole, I know that concept can work. Now we have like Sweetgreens, and we have Poke Brothers, and we have all acai and juice bars, and but I was a little ahead of my time. And it didn't help that the town that we're in didn't, go out of their way to support, small businesses. And for me, that was my biggest takeaway, is like, small business is literally the heartbeat of every community. It is their regular people that put in their own money. We did not have seed money. We were, people were approaching us about other locations, but at that point we didn't, we used all of our own money. I wrote every recipe with a chef friend of mine. Like, I did everything. And to fail like that on such a big scale was very, very difficult for me. Very difficult.
Looking back, was there anything that you could have done differently to kind of, keep the business afloat during the construction?
Probably. I'm, again, I'm not an expert at food costs or labor costs. And that ultimately always becomes that dead end for a restaurant, is like, when your food costs are too high and your labor costs are too high, like, you're literally in quicksand. There's no way out of that, which is a hard lesson that I for sure learned. My background is PR, and, for a lack of a better word, is marketing. And like, I was so proud of the brand, and we had so much media. I mean, I was in Forbes, I was on CNN, I was on the cover of, the Tribune magazine. I mean, so there was never a point where like I didn't promote it enough, because like, promote is like in my blood, right? I know how to do that. There was just a lot of things that were out of my control. And I think that's how I've made peace with it. That yes, I'm sure I could have done a lot more when it came to labor and food costs. But at the same time, like, I knew the quality that we wanted, and I knew what I expected, and I didn't want to skimp on that. The best thing that came out of it was the people that worked with me. I am still in contact with them. I miss them. Being in that type of business, unless you're in it, you don't understand like the camaraderie and the family that you form really quickly. And, I'm very grateful for everybody that put in that blood, sweat, and tears to like work, for us or for me. And it didn't work. And I remember having to tell everybody I had to do it, that we were closing. And
it happens.
It happens, but I couldn't get the words out, and I was like hysterically crying, because it's like telling your family like, you don't have a job anymore. And I really wanted to help I really hope that I helped people find more work, because that was the last thing I would want to do, is to not have people be able to earn money for their families. So there was definitely good that came out of it. The struggle of failure and literally picking yourself up from the floor, and dusting yourself off and just getting up and trying to do it again, is something that I wish probably everybody should do. There was a good amount of time that I did not leave my house, because I was embarrassed, because like, I know our concept was awesome. The food was amazing. We had something, and like, again, the powers around me, which I have very little control over, really sort of, cut the electricity to it. But I think working your way out of something where you're in a pretty dark black hole, I feel like in a way I know it's like punishment, right? But it's like, it's for your soul, right? You've got to find out what you're made out of and how, I'm not one to like be down for the count and then I'm just done, right? I was always doing TV while I was at the restaurant. I was still doing my segments and I just went back to it. I went back to what I know and I love. And the legacy of the restaurant is there. And to this day, I still get emails, people like, I miss you guys. I was like, oh, I wish you guys would come. Right. And I think
the concept was, I remember eating there. It was jars. Everything was in like Mason type jars.
Yeah, exactly. The salads, again, this was before the jar craze really came about. The salads were meant to go, right? And they were meant to pick it up and like shake it and have a lid to go. And most of our other food was just in regular packaging. But the concept of having something to go and have it healthy and have it portable and have really good ingredients and homemade dressings and things like that, that is a concept that like now so many brands and so many restaurants are, really utilizing, because the to go and quick serve and fast casual categories, obviously, even through COVID, are the retail concepts that stick around, right? Because people need food to go. Not a lot of people cook. I cook a lot. I cook almost every day and night. But most people are looking for convenience. That's why you're seeing all the prepackaged meals from these companies where you just throw it in the oven or they send you all the ingredients. I mean, that's the way the food culture in this country, in various parts of this country is going towards. And I was really at the beginning of that.
Yeah. Seems like you should be earning a commission from Farmer's Fridge.
Yes. I was just thinking that.
Agreed. I really did try to like reach out to them multiple times because I was like, they need our cake jars, which again, it's hard to, there are competitors in that, in that category per se, but nobody was doing it the way that we were doing. We were working with a commercial bakery in Northbrook that we all figured out a way to get the layers in the cake to look perfect. This is not shoving cake and shoving frosting in a jar and calling it something. I mean, they were very gourmet and artisanal and they were cute and creative and the flavors were good. And so I was always like, why doesn't Farmer's Fridge want them? Because they were also shelf stable, meaning like they were frozen. I mean, they would stay for 9 months, 10 months, perfectly frozen. And then you thaw them out. So they never called me back. See, there's another thing, like when people just, don't respond to you and you just, I didn't ever want to take no for an answer, but after a while, like I had to move on. Right.
Yeah. So armed with this experience and knowledge of the industry, do you think you'll ever revisit the restaurant space in the future? Or just kind of wait and see. No.
Nope.
My husband would be like, hell no, we're not ever doing that again. It's very stressful. Now, I will tell you, like, I look back at it and I wish obviously we were still open because I wish my kids loved, they were little at the time, right? I mean, so we closed 3 years ago. My son was 9 at the time. My daughter was 11 at the time. They were little, but they really liked working, right? And I really wanted them to work and to understand what it meant to earn a living. And I wish that we were still open for many, many reasons. But in a way, I kind of wish that my kids could have seen something be built out of nothing and have a community embrace it and be a risk taker. I think my parents always taught me that you have to take risks. I was never one to just skate through like whatever was easy. I don't think I'll go back. I love supporting small businesses and I love seeing entrepreneurs like open new concepts and I think I'm done in the restaurant industry.
I think you for Sell Media is where you should keep your attention and put your kids to work at that business.
Yes.
That's a better idea.
Exactly.
Well, we've taken up a lot of your time, and this has been amazing getting to know you and your background, which has just been a lot of fun. But before we go, any final nuggets of wisdom for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be your own biggest promoter, right? I mean, especially when you are like you know, the name of your show. I mean, when you're a CEO and it is a company that you founded, and you know, entrepreneur work is not easy. You are not working for anyone else where it is 9 to 5. And I think that takes a lot of character, right? You come up with something, you believe in it. That's the other thing. You have to believe in your skill set. You have to promote yourself, shamelessly promote yourself. Like there, especially now when there's so much clutter in social media and overall coverage. And you know, marketing coverage, people have a very short attention span. So when you need to talk about your business, when you have 5 minutes of someone's time or 3 minutes, like that, yeah. Don't shy away from that. You know, you have to believe in it and you have to go for it. And then as my friend Rick Kaplan will always tell me, don't take no for an answer.
That's a good way to end our segment here. Karen, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to see you again soon.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was great.
Everybody got a dream, let me show you all love. From an idea, working it into a startup. This the show that you need, what more could you ask for? Never know who become the CEO next door. Tune in, every episode insightful. The type of vibe you will want to subscribe to. Let's go. Hey.